She's been hiding this from her own daughter for years. What else is she hiding? It was like something was wrong with my body, but I couldn't explain it. Every day I'd look in the mirror, see the bloodstains on my clothes, and wonder, why is this happening to me? But I couldn't tell anyone, because the one person I should have been able to trust was telling me not to. My name is Mariam Rivera, and my life was about to change forever, all because of a simple lab test. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. I remember the first time it happened. I was in class, just sitting there, minding my own business, when I suddenly felt a cold rush sharp, as though something was piercing through me from the inside. I didn't think much of it at first. I thought it was just a random thing, maybe stress. But as the days went on, it didn't stop. The bleeding started small, like a small spot on my shirt, but it didn't go away. It was like my body was doing something it shouldn't, and no matter what I did, I couldn't make it stop. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that no one, not even my mum, understood. Whenever I tried to talk about it, her eyes would get wide, and she'd shake her head. "Mariam, you're just stressed out. You're growing up, you're gonna be fine," she'd say. "Don't tell anyone, it's nothing." So I stayed silent. I didn't say anything. I just kept going on with my life like everything was normal, but it wasn't. I was getting weaker by the day. It wasn't just the bleeding anymore. I couldn't focus in class. I'd get dizzy just walking to the next period. I couldn't even climb the stairs without feeling like my legs were going to give out. But no one knew. I would go home, sit at the dinner table with my mum and pretend like everything was fine. She was always so calm, so collected, like she didn't have a care in the world. I didn't understand why she couldn't see how much I was struggling, or why she refused to talk about it. I knew she was worried, but she never said anything. Then came the day that everything changed. I was sitting in history class, listening to my teacher drone on about the Civil War, when I felt it again. A sharp pain in my stomach, followed by a sudden rush of heat. I looked down at my shirt. There it was again. Blood. Fresh, dark red against my white blouse. I felt my heart drop. My stomach twisted in fear. I was supposed to go to the nurse's office after this, but I couldn't leave the class. What if someone asked questions? What if they found out? My mind raced, and I could feel my anxiety tightening around me like a vice. But then something happened. As the bell rang and everyone stood up, Chloe, my best friend, turned to me. She noticed something was off. She asked me if I was okay, and for the first time in weeks, I almost broke. I wanted to tell her everything. I wanted to scream out, "Something is wrong with me. I don't know what's happening." But I didn't. I just smiled weakly and shook my head. "I'm fine," I lied, and she bought it. But deep down, I knew I wasn't fine. I felt like I was living in a fog, and no one could see it. And then, a few days later, the fainting started. That was when I realized I couldn't hide it anymore. Something was seriously wrong, and I needed help. But I had no idea that a simple lab test would uncover something I wasn't ready to hear. I woke up one morning with a dull ache in my stomach that I couldn't shake off. At first I thought it was just the usual cramps, nothing serious. But as the day went on, the pain got worse, and I found myself clutching my stomach in class, trying to hide it. I wasn't sure if I should even tell anyone at this point. Mum had made it clear no one needed to know. At lunch, Chloe kept glancing at me, her brow furrowed with concern. "Mariam, are you sure you're okay? You look pale." "I'm fine," I said with a forced smile, pushing my plate of food aside. My stomach churned, but I didn't want to worry her. I didn't even know what was going on with me. The bleeding, the pain, the dizziness, they had all become such a part of my life that I didn't even know how to explain it. Later that day, during gym class, I found myself struggling to keep up with everyone else. It was a simple game of volleyball, but my legs felt like jelly. Each step was heavier than the last. The pain in my stomach intensified, and I felt like I was about to pass out. I looked around to see if anyone noticed, but they were all too caught up in the game. No one knew. And that was when it hit me. How long was I going to keep this a secret? I tried to push through it. I couldn't just stop everything for something that no one understood, and maybe I didn't understand it either. So I kept quiet. I didn't go to the nurse. I didn't tell Chloe. I didn't even tell my mum, when I got home that day, even though I felt like I was about to collapse. But then came the moment I couldn't ignore anymore. That night after dinner, I was sitting on the couch flipping through a book for homework when the pain got so bad that I had to clutch my side. It felt like something inside me was tearing. I tried to breathe through it, telling myself it was just stress, just hormones, just something that would pass. But when I stood up to go to the kitchen, I felt a warm trickle down my leg. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. Blood. I stared at the small stain on the inside of my pants, panic creeping up my throat. The bleeding was heavier this time, and it was nothing like the few spots I'd noticed before. This was real. I tried to hide it. I didn't want Mum to notice. She was in the kitchen making dinner, and I knew if I told her, she would want to call the doctor, or worse, tell me to tell someone. But I didn't want to tell anyone. I didn't know how. I had already convinced myself that it was just something I had to deal with on my own. When she called me for dinner, I wiped my eyes and tried to act normal. I went downstairs and sat down at the table. She didn't ask, and I didn't tell her. We ate in silence, the only sound coming from the clink of silverware against plates. Later that night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I tried to tell myself it wasn't as bad as I thought. But deep down, I knew it was. The more I tried to ignore it, the worse it got. I couldn't run away from it anymore. I needed help. But could I really ask for it? The next morning, I decided to go to the doctor. I didn't want to tell Mum. I didn't want her to freak out. But I had no choice. Something had to be done. The doctor's office smelled sterile, like antiseptic and old magazines. I sat on the exam table, my legs dangling, feeling small and out of place. My mum sat next to me, her arms crossed, a tight smile on her face. "You'll be fine, honey," she whispered. "Just like we talked about. It's probably nothing." I tried to believe her, but my gut twisted with doubt. The pain in my body had become something I couldn't ignore, something that wasn't just a phase. But there I was, sitting in front of a stranger, trying to convince myself it was all in my head. Dr. Wong, a woman with a warm smile but a serious tone, walked in, clipboard in hand. "So, Mariam," she began, flipping through my file. "Your mum tells me you've been experiencing some bleeding and discomfort. How long has this been going on?" "About a couple of weeks," I muttered, staring at my shoes. I felt like a fraud, like I was making it worse than it really was. "And any other symptoms?" she asked, tapping her pen against the clipboard. I hesitated. How could I explain everything? The dizziness, the constant fatigue, the fear that was slowly eating away at me. How could I explain to her that this wasn't just some teenage phase? That I felt like my body was betraying me and no one understood? "I've been getting really tired," I said finally. "I can't focus. I feel weak all the time. And it hurts. Sometimes. A lot." Dr. Wong nodded and wrote something down. "It could just be your hormones adjusting. Your body is going through a lot of changes, especially at your age. Have you been under a lot of stress? School, friends?" I swallowed hard. Stress. Was that all this was? I wanted to scream, to tell her everything, but the words got stuck in my throat. It's not just stress. It's something else. But I couldn't say it. My mum was sitting right there, and I could see her face. She was already looking relieved, as if she was ready to put this whole thing behind us. Dr. Wong looked at my mum, then back at me. "I think you're fine, Mariam. Sometimes things like this happen. Your body is just adjusting. I don't think it's anything serious." She smiled reassuringly. "But if the pain or bleeding gets worse, come back. We'll run some tests. But for now, just try to relax. Stress can have a big impact on your body." I nodded, but it felt hollow. How could she say that when I felt like I was falling apart? On the drive home, I stared out the window, trying not to let my mum see how much I was struggling. She kept talking about how relieved she was that the doctor said it was just stress. But I knew something wasn't right. The pain in my body wasn't just some temporary thing, it was something deeper. That night, I couldn't sleep. My body felt too heavy, like it was being weighed down by something I couldn't explain, and the bleeding, it hadn't stopped. I tried to ignore it, to just push it to the back of my mind, but it kept coming back, each time worse than before. It was like my body was betraying me, and the worst part was that no one could see it. I didn't want to disappoint my mum. I didn't want to make her worry. But I couldn't ignore the fact that I was getting worse, not better. The doctor may have said I was fine, but I knew deep down I wasn't. This wasn't just a phase. This wasn't just stress. And I didn't know how much longer I could pretend it was. The next few days felt like I was living in a fog. The pain never seemed to go away. It lingered, dull and constant, in the back of my mind. It was as if my body had turned against me, and no one knew how to help. Every time I looked at my mum, I could see the relief in her eyes. The doctor said, "You're fine," she would say, as if repeating it enough times would make it true. But I wasn't fine. I couldn't even bring myself to go back to school. I kept lying to my mum about feeling okay, just so I wouldn't cause a scene. She didn't know how bad it had gotten. She didn't know that some nights I lay awake in pain, clenching my stomach and praying that the bleeding would stop, that the weakness would go away. And then came the day I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had been feeling dizzy all morning, but it was the moment I stepped into the bathroom that I realized just how bad it was. As I stared into the mirror, I saw the blood on my clothes again, thick, dark, and unmistakable. My knees buckled, and I had to grip the counter to steady myself. For the first time in weeks, I let myself cry. I was scared. I didn't know what was happening to me, but I knew it was serious. I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I grabbed my phone, my hands shaking, and booked an appointment at a lab for blood tests. I knew my mum wouldn't approve of me going behind her back, but I couldn't wait any longer. I needed answers. I needed to know what was wrong with me. Later that day, I walked into the lab, trying to steady my nerves. The technician, a woman in her late 20s, asked me to sit down while she prepared the equipment. I kept my eyes on the floor, afraid that if I looked up, I might lose control again. "Don't worry, sweetie," the technician said, her voice calm and soothing. "This won't take long." I nodded, but I could barely focus on her words. My mind was racing. What if it was something serious? What if the doctor had missed something? I didn't want to think about it, but the fear was suffocating. The technician took my blood and left the room for a moment. And then everything changed. She came back in, her face pale. She looked at the test results on her screen, then looked at me, her eyes wide with concern. "Excuse me," she said quietly. "I need to run this test again. Please wait here." I stared at her, confusion and anxiety swirling in my chest. Why was she so calm, yet so serious? My heart pounded in my ears. She took the test again, and the same thing happened. She paused, her eyes flicking between the screen and me, before she said the words that would change everything. "Something's wrong. We need to contact your doctor." I didn't understand. What was wrong? The words wouldn't sink in. Was it my blood? My organs? What did it mean? I wanted to ask her 1,000 questions, but I couldn't find the words. I just stared at her, my breath coming in short bursts. She left the room again, and I sat there, completely still, my mind spinning. I had thought this would be routine, a simple test, an easy answer. But now, I was faced with a terrifying reality that something far worse was going on. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just crossed a line I couldn't come back from. I had to tell my mum. But what would I say? How could I explain to her that the doctors had been wrong, that everything was much worse than we had ever imagined? I didn't know what was going to happen next, but I was certain of one thing: my life was about to change, and there was no going back. I was barely able to hold it together as I left the lab. The technician's words echoed in my mind, the uncertainty of them gnawing at me. "Something's wrong. We need to contact your doctor." My legs felt like they were made of lead, and my mind was a blur of questions. What had happened to me? Why hadn't anyone seen it? The drive home felt endless. My mum was already home when I arrived, sitting in the living room with a book in her lap. She smiled as I walked in, but I couldn't return the smile. I was on the edge, ready to break. "Hey, sweetie, how was the test?" she asked, her voice too casual, too unaware of the storm brewing inside me. I didn't answer right away. My stomach twisted in knots, and for a moment I thought I might just collapse right there. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. Instead, I handed her the piece of paper from the lab, the one with the results. She took it from my hands, her brow furrowing as she read it. The room grew unnervingly silent as she processed the words on the paper. Then she looked at me, her face pale, and I saw it. The worry in her eyes that she had been hiding from me all this time. "Mum?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "What is it?" She took a deep breath, the silence stretching between us. Then, in a low, almost hesitant voice, she spoke. "I should have told you sooner. I didn't want to worry you. But your test results show that you have a rare blood disorder. It's been there for a while now, and it's the reason you've been feeling this way." My heart stopped. The world felt like it was spinning around me. I couldn't breathe. "What do you mean? How long?" My voice cracked, the weight of her words sinking in. "Ever since you were a little girl," she continued, her voice breaking, "I didn't want you to know. I didn't want you to carry that burden. I thought maybe you wouldn't have to deal with it, but now I see I was wrong. I should have been more open. I'm so sorry, Mariam." The truth hit me like a freight train. My whole life I had been living with something I didn't know about, something that had been silently affecting me, making me weak, and making me feel like I was losing control. And my mum, the one person I trusted most, had kept it from me, thinking she was protecting me. My emotions swirled into a messy whirlwind: anger, confusion, fear. How could she keep something like this from me? How could she let me suffer in silence for so long? "I was trying to protect you," my mum said, her voice trembling now. "I didn't want you to feel different, or like there was something wrong with you. I didn't want to see you suffer. But now I realize I made a mistake. I should have told you." The words felt like a punch to the gut, but somewhere in the chaos of my emotions, I understood she had been trying to protect me, even if it had meant hiding the truth. But the truth was out now, and there was no turning back. I stared at her, tears threatening to spill. I didn't know what to say. A part of me was angry, but another part of me just wanted to hug her and tell her it was okay. But it wasn't okay. I had been living a lie, and now everything had changed. That night, I couldn't sleep. The pain in my body, the weakness, the constant dizziness, it all made sense now. The disorder was a part of me, something I couldn't change. But that didn't mean I was powerless. I could fight it. I had to. The next day, we went to see a specialist, a hematologist, who would guide me through managing the condition. I couldn't deny how scared I was. The doctor explained that the disorder was something I would have to live with for the rest of my life, but with the right treatment, I could lead a normal life. There would be medication, regular checkups, and adjustments to my lifestyle, but it wasn't a death sentence. It was a wake-up call. As I left the doctor's office, my mum reached for my hand. "I'm so proud of you," she said softly. "I know it's been hard, but you're stronger than I realized." I squeezed her hand, feeling a mix of relief and uncertainty. It was a long road ahead, but I was ready to face it. I had the support I needed, and more importantly, I had the truth. And that was something I could hold on to. The next few weeks were filled with doctor's visits, tests, and adjustments. I learned about the condition, the medication I needed to take, and the steps I could take to manage it. But more than anything, I learned to listen to my body. No more hiding in silence. I had a voice, and I wasn't afraid to use it. And my mum? She had learned too. She didn't keep things from me anymore. She learned that protecting me wasn't about hiding the truth, it was about being honest and letting me face the world with the knowledge and strength I needed to survive. I wasn't just dealing with a physical condition anymore. I was dealing with the emotional weight of everything that had been hidden from me. But as hard as that was, I was stronger for it. I had a new understanding of my body and my life, and though the road ahead wasn't easy, I knew one thing for sure. I would never let fear or secrecy control me again. I was finally ready to live my truth, and I was going to fight for it every step of the way. Did she protect her or put her in danger? What would you have done? Let me know your thoughts below.